So.
How do you do that?
Oh, so you register? Oh, you go to the, did you go to the VOB? Yeah, the first one. I did the first one.
This one?
Mhm.
And your red light will come on.
There you go.
Thank you.
Okay. I know, it's 9 o'clock. I know Commissioner Delory's here, but,
Get her
Yeah.
rolling.
all right. Good morning. I'd like to call the official MetroPlan Orlando Board meeting of May 11th, 2022 to order. At this time, I want to start with our chair's announcements. And I want to apologize because I have a lot of announcements.
Excuse me, Chair,
Yes.
the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes. Before I get into that, I do want to recognize Commissioner Siplin. Yesterday, we had the ability to celebrate Haitian American Heritage Month at Orange County and would love for her to continue to celebrate in this honor. So Commissioner Siplin, if you will guide us in the Pledge of Allegiance for today.
It would be my honor. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Want to make sure everyone is reminded that when you are speaking today to hit your speak button. So if you've had a moment to register and be connected with us as well as our public comments, make sure that you are speaking clearly. Yeah, I'm speaking. Yeah. Commissioner from Osceola want to make sure you guys could hear me.
I don't know.
At this time, we want to welcome our new board member. We want to welcome Sean Germolis. Mr. Germolis is the new City of Kissimmee appointee for the MetroPlan Board representing the Kissimmee Gateway Airport. Welcome, Mr. Germolis. Look forward to having you aboard.
Madam Chairwoman, Mr. Jamolis was able to make it today.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we were going through a budget meeting, so
Okay.
he will be at the next meeting.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Please send our regards and that we are excited to have him for the future. I also want at this moment to also have Secretary Tyler. We want to also welcome him here to the MetroPlan Board. We'll be hearing all the updates coming from him shortly. But with chair announcements, I wanted to just go over a few. I had the pleasure of participating in the Best Foot Forward Summit on April 6th with some of the great staff here from MetroPlan and great staff from Orange County and law enforcement in multiple counties as they celebrated their 10th anniversary. It was a great event celebrating the achievements of the coalition and recognizing the great partnerships that MetroPlan Orlando has had with the organization since it began. I spent much of the day with others from throughout the 3 counties who were passionate about bicycle and pedestrian safety. The following individuals and projects were recognized: Amanda Day, Day Communications and former executive director of Bike Walk Central Florida, Best Foot Forward Lifetime Achievement Award; Sherry Alderondo and Courtney Gleaton of Orlando Health for the Above and Beyond Award; Sergeant Matthew Blunt of Castleberry Police Department for the Best Foot Forward Triple E Award for Enforcement; Pine Hills Road and El Trio Way RRFB Project, Orange County, Lauren Torres, Christina Pichard Cruz, and Alyssa Torres for Best Foot Forward Triple E Award for Engineering; and Liliana Villago of MetroPlan Orlando for Best Foot Forward Triple E Award of Education. Are there any questions from our board members regarding the Best Foot Forward Summit? Also, Mr. Huttman and I had the pleasure of attending the MPOAC April 27th, 28 meeting. We approved the minutes of the January 27th meeting. Mark Riker, the MPOAC Executive Director, gave us an update of his activity since the January meeting. He provided an update of the Office of Inspector General report and a current budget status report. Mr. Riker provided a legislative update. Excuse me. And we approved the 2023 meeting calendar, but instructed Mr. Riker to look into options for the October 2023 meeting date. We approved an MPOAC request to join the Mileage-Based User Fee Alliance, which is MBUFA. We approved the list of freight priority projects as recommended by the Staff Directors Advisory Council. We approved the list of members to the Noteworthy Practices Working Group as recommended by the Staff Directors Advisory Council. We heard an agency report from FDOT, we heard an agency report from FHWA, and we heard 3 presentations including Building Florida's Vision Zero Network, Safe Mobility for Life Coalition, and Florida Greenways and Trails Foundation. We approved the draft Unified Planning Work Program as recommended by the Staff Directors Advisory Council, and we were asked to review the draft MPOAC bylaws. No action was taken on the bylaws. Our next MPOAC meeting will be a joint meeting of the Governing Board and staff on July 28th, 2022. This meeting will be in Gainesville at the FDOT Materials Office. Now, I wanted to move on to the CFCRC that met on May 5th, the Commuter Rail Commission. Mayor Dyer is the chair of the Commuter Rail Commission. Mayor Dyer, do you have a report or that you'd like to share with us this morning?
Is red on?
Yes.
Okay, seems like it ought to be the other way around. So we did have a meeting last week, and we had a brief update on ridership and all things Sunrail, but more importantly, we had a couple of workshops afterwards, and the first workshop focused on the Sunrail transition to the locals and went over the financial objectives within the transition and touched on different options for the structure of the entity or entity that we would contract with or create to be the operational side of Sunrail. We'll have another workshop with a little bit deeper dive in prior to August, and then a full board presentation in August. We are still on track to have the transition occur 6 months after the Phase 2 North Station is operational. So that should be late 2024 or early 25. Secondly, we had a workshop focused on the potential expansion of Sunrail to not only the airport, but to potential east and west routes. And it has really had a catalyst since we had the discussion related to Brightline going to Tampa, as well as the bipartisan infrastructure bill that is giving us an influx of money that could be available for said expansion. Also, our partners at Brightline and iDrive Right Rail have brought additional assets to the table that are furthering the dialogue. So what it really did was provide an opportunity to update all of the funding partners on the type of discussions that have been ongoing for the last 3 or 4 months.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer. That's a very exciting part that we're going through right now in Central Florida. Right now, I would like to ask, does anyone on the board have any questions for the mayor on any of the reports that I just gave? Yes, Commissioner Padilla. You have to hit the
I think
little
I got the right button
There you
here.
go, we can hear you.
All right. When you said east-west, what areas do you mean?
The first would be to the iDrive area, followed by Disney. So the idea is to have a full connection to Tampa. And you know that we've had quite a controversy over whether we would use the 417 route or the route that would go to iDrive. And there was consensus through a series of meetings with Brightline and the Right Rail folks that Brightline would use the northern route rather than the southern route. So that kind of facilitates us going west and then potentially east to the Sunbridge area.
Okay, so when you mean east-west, you mean like the I-4 idea of east-west, not like colonial east-west?
Ask that again.
From somewhere up
the
north,
fir-
I
the
look
first
at the
connection-
I-4 like
The first
north-south.
obvious
but-
connection is to the airport. And when we created Sunrail, it was 61-mile north-south because we were confined to the CSX tracks. Any further expansion, other than potentially to Apopka, would have to be on tracks that were built anew in right-of-way. So we have right-of-way from the main line to the airport through the OUC coal line. So that's the obvious connection to the airport. And then under discussion were 2 different routes, one along the 417 going south, and then the other is the route that had been proposed by High Speed Rail originally, and that runs along Taft Vineland Road.
Okay, so I know the iDrive Chamber has definitely been pushing for the Brightline to go to iDrive. And I know Brightline then discussed, well, they could be an alternative where Sunrail went to the airport to iDrive instead and have that connector into the Brightline. Is that where this all came from?
So not instead. So Brightline's a once an hour intercity rail. So they would have a stop potentially at that station, but the service would be once an hour. And that's an area that has roughly 70,000, 80,000 employees. So we would envision having Sunrail commuter service to make available transport for the people that work in the area or the 20,000 that work at the airport.
Okay, so I'm sorry, can you explain that route again? So it would go from Universal to the airport and then connect someplace else
There
as
would be
well?
a connection from the main line to the airport along the OUC line. So we could accomplish that without going any further.
When you say the main line, which line? You talk about Brightline or
The
Sunrail?
existing line,
Sunrail?
the existing north-south Sunrail line.
Okay.
So coming west out of the airport to a station, a transfer station that would be constructed. And then from that transfer station, you could go on to a stop somewhere in the iDrive area, and then from there go on to Disney. And from Disney, Brightline picks up and goes I-4. Well, after iDrive, you go I-4 to Disney, and then Disney to Tampa.
Okay. Is there a visual of this somewhere?
Yes, there is. I can get you one.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Bonilla. I want to recognize Commissioner Delary. At this time, I also wanted to add that Mayor Dyer, that line that we're talking about, Orlando International Airport and iDrive, we're talking about 100,000 workers essentially too.
Between the two.
Between the two, that we'd be able to connect in a much faster route than relying on links as their public transit. Commissioner Delary, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and you're absolutely correct. The amount of people that it would connect, not just from the airport, but the convention center, International Drive, and potentially theme parks, is astronomical. I publicly want to thank Mayor Dyer as well as Mayor Demings for their leadership. Any big idea, and this is not just a big idea, but it's the future, it's not easily done. And their ability to bring it forward to us and to be transparent. It's not easy, but they are doing it, and I want to compliment them for doing that. No big idea is an easy idea, especially when you have 5 funding partners, including the state. So I wanted to publicly thank not just you, Mayor Dyer, but also Mayor Demings for your leadership in this, because I know that you've been having meetings, and you've been keeping us, you've been keeping us informed, and you're continuing to keep us informed, and I wanted to publicly thank you for that. So thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate that,
Thank you,
Commissioner.
Mayor.
Commissioner Constantine, you're recognized.
Thank you. And that's what I wanted to echo with what my colleague Commissioner Delary said. The fact of the matter is that ever since we started working on Sunrail, even back in the legislature, Mayor, the idea was always to get it to the airport. And just as Brightline was coming in, the idea was always to get some sort of opportunity for Sunrail and Brightline to work together. And even when they were looking at just going straight to Disney, many of us were looking at the fact that there has to be a way to utilize the two of them together to get Brightline to International and then on to Disney and to get the Sunrail over to the airport. So all that was involved, mayors, both of you and everyone else, and being a colleague of yours on the Expressway Authority also, I'm just very pleased with this. And this is going to be a game changer, ladies and gentlemen, in not only Central Florida, but also in the viability, the long-term viability of Sunrail. So I'm extremely pleased, and I just wanted to echo my thanks, support, and look forward to working on it.
And I would note that it's one of those moments in time when we started the conversations, there was no bipartisan infrastructure bill. There hadn't been a vote on the Orange County Sales Tax Initiative. So those are 2 huge pieces of it. And then having a great partner in FDOT and the new secretary who's willing to take the lead in our discussions with FTA and FRA and what funding opportunities there's going to be. So got to make sure we acknowledge and thank FDOT too for their participation.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer. And I know that Congressman Soto has already put his letter of support forward, on that. And Secretary Tyler, we know someone, we know Jared, so we get to call him, use that cell phone number. But I want to move on now to,
Commissioners.
oh, I'm
really-
sorry,
I
Mayor,
wanted to-
yes, Mayor
wanted to
Mayor
jump in.
Demings.
To Commissioner Bonilla's point, in terms of the additional east-west type of connectivity, she mentioned Colonial Drive. Part of our sales tax initiative contemplates some type of east-west connectivity in the Colonial Drive corridor. That may look like initially bus rapid transit, where there'll be dedicated lanes that may run from the university area all the way out to the Winter Garden, Oakland area. When we talk about the connectivity, we're not just talking about, in some regards, only commuter rail, but what we are talking about are multimodal mass transit types of connectivity throughout the entire county and region. And that creates, we anticipate that it will create additional ridership and connectivity, ridership for the links public transit system. And if we can improve connectivity there, we can also improve connectivity with to our commuter rail system or other types going forward. So many of you know that the sales tax initiative that we're advocating for the ballot is a 20-year term at a 1% rate of penny tax. And so we still have to go through the OPAGA study by the state. And once that is completed and approved, then we'll be looking at the November period of time for the referendum to actually be on the ballot, so that the electorate, the voters, will have the opportunity to decide for themselves whether or not to tax themselves in that manner. So more to follow. A lot will happen, in terms of the campaign to hopefully ensure that we are able to get the football across the goal line with 50% plus one in November. So that's the update there.
Thank you, Mayor Demings. Are there any other questions or comments at this time? I want to make sure I don't miss anyone. Okay, fantastic. We're going to move forward to the Executive Director's announcement. Mr. Huttman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Uribe, and good morning, board members. I want to start this morning with just some congratulations to a number of people. And our first is to congratulate Jeffrey Campbell, who represents our Community Advisory Committee and does a good job doing that. Jeffrey is seen here holding his first grandchild, a little boy whose name is Josiah. So congratulations, Jeffrey, on that. Secondly, even though he's not here, I wanted to publicly Sure.
A minute. Do I see there he picked a college? Other grandparents picked that college.
I was going to say, you live in Florida.
My shirt just happened to be that color that day.
Okay, continuing, even though he's not here, I wanted to publicly congratulate Secretary Perdue on his appointment to the central office. He assumed was appointed on April 6th, and he assumed those responsibilities immediately. And then I want to congratulate our new district secretary, John Tyler, to my left. I'm very happy that the department wasted no time, first of all, in replacing Secretary Tebow, and then in making sure that District 5 got a new secretary appointed very quickly. So congratulations, Secretary Tyler. I wanted to report that NARC, the National Association of Regional Councils, of which we're a very active member, will be holding their annual meeting in Columbus, Ohio, coming up next month on June 12th through the 15th. I'm registered and will be attending that. Next month, we will be having a legislative review by Gray Robinson, Brian Matthews, and Angela Drisecki will be here, looking at kind of a wrap-up of the 22 session and looking forward to the 23 session. We've been working with the local partners and assisting them. I talked with Commissioner Moore briefly this morning about the letters of interest that have gone out for either raised grant applications or what they're calling the community funded project requests. Those letters, copies of those letters are included in your agenda package this morning. I wanted to also mention Bike Walk Central Florida and their April 6th event in Winter Park. You know, it celebrated the coalition, and this is really for those board members that may be new and less familiar with the organization, but we also serve to acknowledge all the leadership that Amanda Day provided to the coalition and the transition during COVID to Emily Hanna, and she's really done an outstanding job representing that organization throughout the region. Over the 10 years that the coalition has existed, this board has helped to fund their work to the tune of nearly $1 million. So it's something that the board should be aware of and be very proud of. And then continuing with Best Foot Forward, they have an enforcement going on yesterday and today. 11 local law enforcement agencies have teamed up for that event. They are covering traffic at 15 separate locations, and they're focusing on trail traffic and pedestrian safety at the trail crossings. So there's a listing of that information in your supplemental folders this morning. We were involved, and in fact, we're a sponsor of the Florida Greenways and Trails event held on April 21st and 22nd. That event was held in DeBerry at the historic DeBerry Plantation. Taylor Laurent, Mike Wilson, and I attended that on behalf of MetroPlan Orlando. The board may recall a presentation recently that you had on our new health strategic plan. I guess it was at the March board meeting. That work was submitted and accepted for a presentation at the upcoming meeting of a new group that we've not previously been involved with, and that is the Environmental Design Research Association. They're meeting on June 1st through the 4th in Greenville, South Carolina. Sarah Larson of our staff managed that work, and a consultant named Jerry Britton from HDR presented that along with Sarah to the board in March. This is another great example of the national exposure that we are receiving for our work, and and this one is really special because it's in kind of a non-traditional area. So we're kind of tearing down some walls here. The Central Florida MPO Alliance will have their joint meeting with the organization from the Tampa area called the Suncoast TPA on June 10th, on Friday, June 10th. That event will be held at the Lake Eva Event Center in Haines City. The Floridians for Better Transportation have an event coming up in July. I will be attending that event on behalf of MetroPlan Orlando. And then I wanted to also recognize some staff members. Mary Ann Horn, recently, I believe just last week, celebrated her 10-year anniversary with MetroPlan Orlando. So congratulations, Mary Ann, on that. And then continuing with the communications staff, Cynthia, Mary Ann, and Leilani, the 2021 Regional Transportation Survey recently won an Image Award, Best in Category, at the Florida Public Relations Association's Local Image Awards. That ceremony was held on April 20th, and the board heard a presentation of those results last July. And then I also wanted to congratulate Leilani from our staff, having received the Best Foot Forward Triple E Award for Education at the recent summit that Chair Uribe mentioned. Want to remind the board members, many of you are scheduled with us to take a tour of the airport South Terminal, thanks to Mr. Good, his suggestion and arrangement. That is scheduled for May 26th at 10 o'clock. I believe you've all received parking and kind of instructions on protocols to follow. And if you've misplaced that or haven't seen it yet, please let us know and we'll make sure that you receive that. And then I want to remind everyone about our July board meeting. Remember last year we had some difficulty with that. We had that again this year. So we did a poll and it is now moved to July 27th, and that is to accommodate some local budget hearings. So it's 2 weeks after what we would normally have the board meeting. And then you have one item in your supplemental folders this morning. As I mentioned, that's some information on the Best Foot Forward enforcement that's going on yesterday and today. Madam Chair, that completes my announcements. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huntman. Are there any questions or comments from anyone on the board? I do want to add one comment. Miss Emily Hanna she's amazing and available for anyone who would like to use her. She did our leadership conference for District 3 where she goes into great detail, but more than anything, she offers HOAs and neighborhoods ideas that they could bring to the county to help improve pedestrian traffic within neighborhoods. So she's fantastic, and I highly recommend her, and she even changed her vacation to attend our event, so she's really committed to the job. So thank you, Mr. Huntman, and seeing no other.
Commissioner?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry,
I just
Commissioner
wanted-
Gomez Cordero,
Thank
yes.
you. I just wanted to say to Mr. Gary that I was this morning, we were doing the BFF in front of Lake Nona High School. And I was there from 7:30 to 8:30, and there were like 8 cars that were stopped. I mean, the fake people that was crossing, I mean, people didn't stop, and the police officers were there, and it's like, I don't know, I think we have to be more aggressive with that. But I was there with Eric, Emily was not there, but we were there, and he was filming, and so, I mean, the project and all this campaign is doing well. I think people are like,
Well, that's good to hear, and I will have for you at the June meeting, a report out on this enforcement, so.
Thank you, Commissioner Gomez Cordero. At this time, we're going to move to our new FDOT Secretary, Mr. John Tyler. John, you are recognized. In case you don't know, to the right, our attorney, Mr. Small, likes to step up his attire, so you guys on that side of the room are put to question. But, Mr. Tyler, thank you so much, Secretary Tyler, and you have the floor.
All right. Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everyone. It's great to be here today. I appreciate the warm welcome. I really do, and I'm excited about being the next District 5 Secretary. We're also very excited for Secretary Perdue. He did quickly, escape to Tallahassee and was consumed by the whirlwind of running the FDOT statewide. He's doing a great job. We miss him. We're happy for him, but it's also a great thing for Central Florida because he understands, the challenges of Central Florida and the communities of Central Florida. So we're excited about that. A little bit about me. I've been with FDOT right here in District 5 for my entire career since I graduated college. So 27 years I've been working in transportation right here in Central Florida. So I've worked on a lot of projects over that time frame, small projects, big projects. The first one that I worked on in the MetroPlan area was the PD&E study for the John Young Parkway extension. So it goes back that far. Worked on Sunrail, Wekiva Parkway, I-4 Ultimate, but also, all of the other projects that are just as meaningful to their local communities. Pedestrian improvements, traffic operations, turn lanes, widenings, you name it. I've seen a little bit of everything that we do here at the DOT. So I'm hoping to bring that experience to help continue District 5 moving forward into the future so that we can build the best projects that we can for your communities. One of the things that I've learned over those 27 years is that we do our best work when we have very strong partnerships with our local government partners and when we develop and build projects that our communities can support. And so that's our commitment. That's what Secretary Perdue believed. That's what I believe. That's what my entire executive team believes back at the district office. So that's what you can count on from District 5. So with that, I'm going to move into some business items, if you don't mind. There's a lot of exciting things going on within DOT here in the MetroPlan area that I want to talk about this morning. So I'll jump right in on that. And the first thing is going to be the I-4 express lanes. We're a little bit over 2 months into the opening of those express lanes. We're very pleased. The department is very pleased with how they're operating. Right before we opened up, you remember that we did a lot of practice with our first responder partners, our asset maintenance contractor and our RTMC. So a lot of your fire, EMS, police departments, sheriff's offices, they went out there, they got hands-on with the equipment, with the facility. We practiced together, and I think that has paid a huge dividend because we've had a very smooth transition into the operation of those express lanes since we opened them at the tail end of February. We're seeing about 15,000 cars a day choosing to use those express lanes. And that is in line with our early projections. We built them for today, but we also built them for tomorrow. okay? So when we opened them up, we dramatically increased the amount of capacity, potential capacity for I-4. We added over 81 lane miles and almost doubled or increased the capacity by 50%. So it's not just for today that we built those express lanes, it's for tomorrow as well, because we are expecting to see continued growth here in Central Florida, which is exciting as well. Moving on to truck parking. So we have an innovative thing that we've been doing here in Central Florida, which is a PD&E study for truck parking. Freight mobility is vital to our economy, and one of the things that's important to making sure that we have a good, strong, efficient freight system is ensuring that we've got places for those trucks where they can take their required and needed rest breaks to deliver the goods to consumers. And we have a shortage of truck parking availability here in Central Florida. So we took on an effort to lead a PD&E study to identify and eventually build additional truck parking here in Central Florida. So that study started last year. Earlier this spring, we went through a series of public meetings where we shared in each of the counties, Volusia, Seminole, Orange, and Osceola, potential alternative sites for truck parking sites in each of those counties. We're going to be going back this summer with a second round of public meetings where we're going to be sharing our thoughts on preferred alternatives for each of those 4 counties. So that'll be coming up. First up to bat is going to be Seminole County, and that's going to be, I believe, later this month or early July. So we're looking forward to the conclusion of that study. We're building a lot of momentum. Once we complete the study, we'll want to move right on into to design of our first site and hopeful construction soon thereafter. Let's see. I really appreciate all of the attention to best foot forward and improving pedestrian safety. Safety is our #1 priority here at DOT, and safety is everyone's job. So I really appreciate the community effort that it takes to get us there. So another disturbing trend that we're seeing at the department is the decline in seatbelts usage. And as we move into the Memorial Day holiday, there's going to be a nationwide campaign for Click It or Ticket. Click It or Ticket is not about issuing tickets. It's about saving lives. It's about trying to raise awareness of the importance of seatbelt usage. And this year, it's going to take on a little bit more meaning in years past, because we are seeing that decline in seatbelt usage. So far this year, 20% of the fatalities that have occurred on the roadways right here in the MetroPlan area could have been prevented if people were wearing the seatbelts. That's a lot of people. And so we really want to try to focus on what is causing that behavior and try to address it. And it is going to require a community approach to address that problem as well. And then my final thought, I have some good news to share. We are going to be opening our next segment of the Wekiva Parkway on Monday, May 16th. This is going to be Section 6, which runs from where the Parkway ends at County Road 46A in Lake County, all the way across the Wekiva River into Seminole County. So it'll be our longest stretch of Wekiva Parkway that has been open to date. We're looking forward to it. And a lot of hard work has gone into that project over the years. I'm sure Commissioner Constantine can share some of the stories of all of the struggles that have gone into completing the parkway. So another big piece is coming to fruition on Monday morning. So we're excited about that. And with that, I'm open for comments and questions.
Thank you, Secretary Tyler. If I'm not mistaken, it's ironic that you said the seatbelt, because the last Best Foot Forward I went to, not one of the cars I pulled over, anyone had a seatbelt on. And I read an article recently that the federal government's going to try to mandate these car manufacturers to do more, I guess, with the beep, 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 when they're not wearing seatbelts. But does anyone...
What was that noise?
Does anyone have a question or comment for Secretary Tyler?
I do.
Yes,
Madam
Commissioner.
Chair. I have a question. So back to the seatbelt issue, because I know with these cars, if you're the driver, that beeping noise won't go off even if there's a passenger in the seat. So can you identify like the fatalities? Were they probably drivers, the passengers in the back, or were there actual drivers? Do you guys have that?
We do have that information. I don't have the breakdown with me, but from my recollection, because unfortunately I get to hear about them almost real time.
Right.
You know, when they're happening on the state roads. We do get alerts from our RTMC, and so I'm seeing some of that, you know, play out in real life. And so the answer is, it's both. It's passengers and drivers, and even children.
Yeah, because I see them sometimes, you know, they pack the kids in the back of the seats, you know, in the back of the cars, but, you know, drivers with the new technology in the vehicles, you know, I was just trying to figure out if it was mainly passengers or drivers, but can you get that information
Yes,
to
ma'am.
us?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
appreciate that, thank you.
Or front seat or back seat.
Passenger, I guess.
And it's both, front and back.
Thank you, Commissioner Siplin. Commissioner Bonilla, you're recognized.
Yeah, I remember when we had cable, that there was always these commercials with these dummies, and it was comedic, but it was like a serious message of please wear your seatbelt. I don't know if you remember those.
Yes, the crash test dummies.
Yeah, there you go. Are they still doing those commercials? And I know most people now stream. Are they doing those commercials in the streaming platforms?
We do have targeted media campaigns. I'm not sure if the crash test dummies are still part of that, but because we are focusing on particular demographics, and quite frankly, it's younger people, younger males as well. But we do have both the state of Florida as well as the federal government. They are targeting those demographics through means that we believe will reach the intended audience. So I'm not sure if we're still using the crash test dummies per se, but we're definitely sending some sort of message. I can send some more information out about that as well.
Yeah, I definitely think education is important.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioner Bonilla. Commissioner Zimbauer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. From the manufacturer's perspective, there is some technology that is currently being deployed and being considered and tested. One is the seat sensors that are already in most of these vehicles to determine the occupant size for deployment of airbag algorithms. The additional considerations are the thought process of reduction of power in the vehicle itself if the seat belts are not buckled. So the proximity sensors in the seats will not allow the vehicle to start unless they're first buckled. And then there is considerations of if it is not buckled, once you departed and started the car, then a reduction of the vehicle's speed would automatically kick into what was called a limp mode, where the vehicle would not exceed 25 mile an hour. And there is some concerns with that from the manufacturer's liability standpoint, from the aspect somebody would unplug their seatbelt on the interstate and all of a sudden the car would reduce speed. So it's an ongoing process, but the manufacturers are looking at that. There's a lot of stuff being deployed.
Thank you, Commissioner Zimbauer. You articulated my article a lot better. I'm sorry. Yes, you're recognized.
First off, Secretary Tyler, congratulations. We're happy to have you promoted in that position. And thank you for the update on Wekiva Parkway, particularly for all the riders across 46 the past few years. I got a question for you, and that is, are you guys on schedule for connecting across to Reinhardt by early next year? What's kind of that timetable look for the complete Beltway connection?
That's a great question, and so we expect to be able to be substantially complete. And so what that means is all of the movements in place, you know, all the ramp movements as well as that would be the east-west connection of Wekiva Parkway across to the Greenway and to and from I-4 by early next year, early 2023. So January, February timeframe. We are pushing hard to get the I-4 westbound to Wekiva Parkway westbound ramp open prior to that. A lot of things still have to happen to be able to make that connection, but we are trying to build some momentum to be able to open at least that one movement before the end of this calendar year. Time will tell. We're going to need to have some good weather, or at least not be impacted by significant weather, and so we're hoping to open up that before the end of the year. And then, like I said, the substantial completion, have all of the ramp movements available by early 2023. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Secretary Tyler, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we're going to move on to roll call and confirmation of quorum. Ms. Smith?
Bates. Bonilla. Constantine.
Here.
Delari.
Here.
Demings.
Here.
Dyer. Fisher.
Here.
Gomez Cordero.
Here.
Good. Green. Grebe. Janer.
Here.
Moore. Nelson.
Here.
Ortiz. Siplin. Trace.
Here by phone.
Uribe. Woodruff. Zimbauer. Madam Chair, we do have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith. We're going to move on to the agenda review. Mr. Hutton?
There are no changes to the agenda, but just a reminder that Councilmember Trace was unable to be here in person, and he will be giving the MAC report online.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And we're going to go to committee reports. Good morning, Councilmember Trace. You are on for us.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairwoman, and good morning, board members. The Municipal Advisory Committee met last week on May 5th. Like the other advisory committees, the MAC met in person with a physical quorum present for the first time in almost 2 years. Our action items, all of which were unanimously approved, included our March 2022 meeting minutes, the amendments to the TIP on our agenda today, and the MAC's recommendation for approval of the UPWP. Like other advisory committees, we received informational presentations on the Turnpike's PD&E study, presentation on MetroPlan Orlando's staff, from MetroPlan Orlando staff on tracking the trends, and our next meeting is June 2nd. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilmember Trace. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much for that. We're going to move on to the Community Advisory Committee. So Grandpa Campbell, you're up.
Thank you and good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. On April 27th, the Community Advisory Committee met in person for the first time in 2 years, and I am happy to share that we had a full quorum. The CAC welcomed 7 new members at the meeting. 5 were MetroPlan Orlando appointees whom you approved at your March meeting, along with 2 representatives from Osceola County and from the city of Kissimmee. CAC members voted to recommend the TIP amendment and draft UPWP that's on your agenda for today. We heard 2 presentations at the meeting. One was presented by MetroPlan staff on tracking the trends, which is a living, breathing document of data and information that constantly being updated. Really, the only concern we had there was maybe the desire to hear more of an emphasis on safety and maybe even more of a safety campaign that's been mentioned earlier. But we look forward to this document being developed further. The CAC also heard a presentation on Florida's Turnpike widening PD&E study. This was an earlier presentation we had heard in August, and I actually thought that we were going to hear it today, but I guess it was a misprint. They don't come before this board with that particular PD&E study. Now, I want to say this up front. The presentation was given by Mr. Nathan Silver of RS&H Consulting, and he was as professional with his delivery and responses to our concerns as anyone could be. So it was not his responses that created any concerns or maybe friction that the committee felt. So members had strong reaction to the PD&E study presentation. This is a 10-mile stretch, and if I'm correct, it's going to go from like Turkey Lake to State Road 50. And if I recall correctly, the concerns range from things like the cost. It was stated to be between $500 and $800 million. What does that mean? It's probably going to be more. I don't know, billion. Another concern, whether there's other ways to deal with this problem of congestion out there. Maybe we need to consider other modes of travel or transportation. Another concern, environmental. What will happen with things like air quality. The plan showed an expansion in some situations to 18 lanes. It's a big project. The data, another concern. Some of it was collected as far back as 2018 and moving forward. We think that even some of the focuses on things like drive time needs to be expanded. Another concern, and I won't go on and on. It appears that some of the widening may even hinder bike and pedestrian travel. So again, Mr. Silva did a great job with the presentation, but the message that I want to bring forward is, as you see this move forward, if you're involved in it, please bear these things in mind, okay? Our next meeting will be May 25th. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, appreciate that. Look forward to continued review. We're going to move on to our Technical Advisory Committee. Mr. Lee Pullum, Miss Lee Pullum, excuse me, you're recognized.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and members of the board. The TAC meeting met in person on April 22nd. We recommended approval of the request by FDOT to amend the TIP to add funding for the Hicks Avenue Extension Project. We also recommended approval of the new Unified Planning Work Program. We also heard presentations on the PD&E study for the widening of Florida's Turnpike from State Road 408 to State Road 50, and a report on tracking the trends. The TAC members voted to change the date of our next meeting from May 27th to May 20th because of the Memorial Day holiday weekend. That concludes my report, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you again. Ms. Pullum, any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, we appreciate that. And we're going to move on to the Transportation Systems Management and Operations Committee. Mr. Center, you're recognized.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. The TSBO Advisory Committee committee met on April 22nd. This was also our first fully in-person meeting in more than 2 years, and we also had a quorum in the boardroom. The following items were approved: the meeting minutes for our February 25th meeting, the FDOT amendment to fiscal year 21-22 through 25-26 to include the Hicks Avenue extension from Gore Street to Anderson, and MetroPlan Orlando staff recommendation on approval of the Unified Planning Work Program. We did have one presentation from Dr. Ryan Wallace from the Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University on the use of drones in planning and traffic management. And also, as the other committees, due to the Memorial Day weekend, we agreed to move the May 27th meeting to May 20th. So that will be our next meeting at 8:30 a.m. on May 20th, and that concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, and I look forward to your report next month. We are now going to move on to public comments on action items. Our next agenda item is to hear public comments. I will first recognize online attendees. Anyone who is online and wants to make a public comment is asked to complete an electronic speaker's card. Each speaker has 2 minutes to address the board. Speakers should use the raise hand feature on the Zoom platform, and you will then be invited to unmute your microphone to speak. In-person speakers will be called next. Each speaker should fill out a speaker's card located on the table as you enter the boardroom and given to Ms. Lisa Smith. Speakers must state their name and address for the record. People who wish to speak on non-action items will be acknowledged in the same way under Agenda Item 13. Ms. Kathy, do we have anyone online who wishes to speak?
At this time, there's no one online with their hand raised to speak, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Kathy. Lisa, do we have any members of the public this morning who wish to speak or make a comment?
I have not received any in-person requests.
Okay, fantastic. We are going to move on to our consent agenda.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Delary, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented to us today.
Second by Janer.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Delary, a second by Commissioner Janer down there. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that is passed unanimously. We're going to move on to other action items. We have 3 additional action items this morning. The first action item is the approval of the FDOT amendments to the 21-22, 25-26 TIP. Mr. Keith Caskey of MetroPlan Orlando staff will present, and this will be a roll call vote. Mr. Caskey, you're recognized.
Okay, good morning, Madam Chairwoman and board members. We have two amendments this morning. The first amendment is for the Hicks Avenue Extension Project in Orlando, and this was included in a set of amendments that was approved last December. And the amendment this morning involves adding an additional $3.2 million in federal funds for the construction of this project in the current fiscal year, 21-22. And these funds are being added due to cost estimate increases. And you all have the information on that item in tab 2 in your packets. So with that, unless there's any questions, we're asking for your approval of that amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Caskey. Do we have any questions or comments from the from the board?
Motion to approve, Janer.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All right, Ms. Lisa, we'll do a roll call vote at this time.
Bonilla,
Aye.
Constantine,
Yes.
Delary,
Yes.
Demmings, Dyer,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Gomez Cordero, Good, Green, Grebe, Janer, Moore, Nelson,
Yes.
Ortiz, Siplin, Trace,
Yes.
Uribe, Woodruff, Zimbauer.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to our second action item, approval of the FDOT amendments to the 21-22, 25-26 TIP. Mr. Caskey on the MetroPlan will go ahead and discuss the I-4 at Darrell Carter Parkway.
Okay, for the next amendment, the length of the I-4 Darrell Carter Parkway interchange project has been adjusted to support the water management district permitting. And the advisory committees did not get a chance to review this amendment before today's meeting, since it came up after most of the committees had already met. And this has to be processed in a timely manner so that the project can be let for a construction contract. And this amendment does not include any changes to the funding for the project. So again, unless there's any questions, we're asking for your approval of this amendment.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, oh, I'm sorry, yes.
No, just the length of the project. It was over 3 miles, it's being reduced to 1.78 miles.
Okay, fantastic. Any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion? Second?
Second. More second.
Second, Commissioner Moore. And Ms. Smith will do a roll call vote at this time.
Bonilla, Constantine,
Yes.
Delary,
Yes.
Demmings,
Yes.
Dyer,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Gomez Cordero, Good, Green, Grebe, Janer, Moore, Nelson,
Yes.
Ortiz, Siplin, Trace,
Yes.
Uribe,
Yes.
Woodruff, Zimbauer. Madam Chair, the motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Thank you, Mr. Caskey. Our final action item is the approval of the Unified Planning Work Program. Mr. Nick Knepp from Orlando Metro staff, he will present. Nick, you are recognized.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm here to present our final draft of the Unified Planning Work Program, which is our 2-year budget for MetroPlan. We started this back in January. We came and presented that draft to this board back in March. We've then submitted the draft to FHWA and FDOT for comments. We've addressed those comments, and we're here in front of you to approve the final version. One of the new things with this item is a consolidated planning grant. So within this budget, instead of getting 2 separate grants, one from FHWA and the other one from FTA, DOT has been working in central office to combine this into one grant, which makes it easier for us for maintaining and doing our MPO work and only having to bill on one grant instead of 2. Also just following the rules for one grant for FHWA versus 2 separate rules. A little example of how this goes, it really doesn't change much. Before, if we received $250,000 from FHWA and another $150,000 from FTA for $400,000, Now that's just all combined, and we have one grant for $400,000. So really no change except for easing of the operations and administration for us. The budget largely remains the same. We'll still be able to do a lot of the work that we've been doing over the past 2 years, as well as that local government support, which I'll go into a little bit more detail in this task. We've been trying to streamline our budget over the past couple of years. We went from 6 years ago having 8 sections with 26 different tasks to really starting to break down those silos of multimodal transportation and combine them all into what we now have a more streamlined budget with 2 sections and 10 separate tasks. Most of our tasks within that budget is around our core products, which is the MPO administration, our transportation improvement plan, our metropolitan transportation plan, which I hate to say we will be updating going into 2050 within this budget, data development, and also multimodal systems planning. We also include transportation systems management operation as a task, as an emphasis, as well as our special studies, which I'll go into in a little bit more detail. These are the studies that we like to do to support our local governments and also help support and get ourselves ready for that Metropolitan Transportation Plan update, or that MTP. So within that, we're going to start looking at some of our master plan updates with TSMO, bicycle pedestrian, public transportation, as well as complete streets, as we combine these and work towards that ultimate 2050 update. We're also looking at speed management and some safety studies within Sanford and Kissimmee. We have some core products with our public engagement, with our public participation plan, and updating that public opinion survey, which was widely popular. And then also continuing to purchase that big data to help support our local governments with these transportation and transit plans. The last section is our links planning activities. We're going to operate this a little bit differently now. We're going to be partnering with links, utilizing our general planning consultants as we're trying to do this transit development and transit planning within the region. Some of the comments that we received from the federal side, mostly it was about consultant activity, making sure that there was ensuring enough time to review the scopes and the tasks were consistent and eligible. And then for the state, it was including some of our products within the UPWP, like our COOP, our bylaws, and some of the resolutions. So those are the comments we received. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'm looking for a motion to approve our UPWP for fiscal year 22-23 and 23-24.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments for Mr. Webb? Seeing none, this is a voice vote, so do we have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This passes unanimously. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
the updates. We will then move on. There's informational items for acknowledgement.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the informational items that's set in our packet.
We have a motion by Commissioner Delary and a second by Commissioner Siplin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This passes unanimously. Now we're going to move on to other business presentations. We have one presentation this morning. It is Tracking the Trends from Mr. Alex Trauger from MetroPlan Orlando. Mr. Trauger, you are recognized. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. As our chairwoman mentioned, I'm here to talk about tracking the trends, something MetroPlan Orlando has been doing for some time now. A question we often get asked is, why do we track trends in our line of business, long-range planning, transportation planning, gathering information, assembling information, analyzing and then monitoring that information is kind of key and essential to our line of work, especially as we plan for the future. We have to understand our past and ensure that we're monitoring progress to see that we're, good morning, Joanne, that we're getting to our regional vision and also accomplishing our established goals and objectives. The data also serves to provide context and is a foundation to our work, and also provides, again, some information to the situations that we're trying to solve for. And to you as decision makers on our MPO board, as well to our advisory committees, it's about providing the best information to you so you can make the most informed decisions as our elected body. I mentioned that Tracking the Trends is a publication, a long-standing one that historically has been a PDF, something that was produced, made in Word, converted to PDF, and then posted online, composed of 4 sections here. An area profile really looks at who we are as a community, who we've become, population, employment, demographic information, Our asset inventory is just that. It looks at our regional transportation infrastructure, land, sea, and air, and the statistics and attributes about that particular infrastructure. In the last two sections, our systems performance report and our regional goals and objectives focus on the targets and performance measures that you've adopted as part of our annual federal measures and also as part of our 2040 MTP. So this is us revisiting and monitoring our progress from long-range plan to our shorter-term capital improvement plans. So a long-standing document that just last year went digital, and this allowed us to do a lot more, and I think especially for information sharing and allowing our partners at a regional level to dive in more locally. All of our maps and tools that we develop are found on the MetroPlan Orlando website under that Maps and Tools tab. The short link for tracking the trends is metroplanorlando.org/trends. And as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner there, we are covering a lot of ground. Really pun intended there. We are a study area the size of Delaware, so greater than some other states. So we're covering a lot of area. But again, as I mentioned, this digital interface allows us to display maps, online maps at a regional level, which is important as we put our regional hat on as we enter this boardroom, but also allows you to zoom in to your neighborhood, to your community, to your district to understand how that transportation data is influencing there. So over 20 interactive maps that allow you to, again, start at a regional level, zoom into the street that you're on to see how transportation impacts you directly. And those maps historically, again, were 8.5 by 11, so like a 7 by 8 map. So this, again, is really allowing us to dive into the data, and especially for the members of the public to be as informed as possible. So the chair mentioned and Mr. Campbell mentioned that Tracking the Trends is a living document that we're going to be updating this throughout the year as part of our performance-based planning and as part of our congestion management process. So the majority of those updates in the data, based on data availability, is going to be coming later this year, towards the end of summer, kind of going into fall. So we'll be coming back with some semi-annual monitoring. But some of the things that are in the news that I figure would be worth talking about, especially as the world starts opening back up. But something that you've probably been attuned to is population growth. We talk about this often. These here are U.S. Census numbers. So we have a 2020 number last from the census, but as we look for 2021 from the University of Florida's forecast, we're looking, all of our counties are greater than the statewide average. And in track, and I think what's important for this particular indicator are these forecasts, that 2.5% to 3% growth is consistent with our 2045 plans adopted growth forecast. So again, we're monitoring to ensure that our plans are consistent so we can, again, adjust course as needed. But again, population growth, not the case for all markets in the region, but we are seeing that growth. As it relates to visitation, I did see a little bit at the Orange County Commission meeting from Visit Orlando yesterday, but we know visitation's rebounding here locally, nationally, internationally in some cases. We have a transportation kind of proxy measure for this as it relates to our two commercial service airports, Orlando and Sanford International. But as you can see, we took a dip during those pandemic days, but things are rebounding. This is important for us as important economic indicators, especially as it relates to, again, visitation and MetroPlan Orlando's role in providing that surface transportation, that world-class connection for both our visitors, but also for our accommodation workers. Another topic, safety. We talk about this often. We talked about the Best Foot Forward event earlier today, and some of this information that I'll mention here was presented in detail there. We had a vulnerable user working group just a couple weeks ago, made up of your staff and as well as members from our other advisory committees. We dug deep into some of the safety, data and what we're doing about it as an agency, and you're going to learn more about that at the coming meetings. But something as it relates to tracking the trends is we have developed a crash data dashboard. All of your staffs have access to something called the Signal 4 database, and DOT has their own crash database. But this is a public-facing database that allows you to pivot, sort, and filter through some of those crash statistics. We've kind of sanitized some personal information, personal records and whatnot. So you're just focusing on crash data. But it starts out looking at concentrated, area heat map, but then you can actually zoom into particular crash instances. And again, pivot and sort by category, county, manner of collision, vulnerable user of that type. So it really allows the public and you a quick reference dashboard for that. We still advise our planning partners to still use the Signal 4 database, of course, for more robust and comprehensive analysis. But something notable about safety, and you've probably heard this, but I think it's important to note at this level, is we've seen VMT declines, over the past 24 months, and with that, we've seen kind of a correlated decline in crash rate. But something that's disproportionate that we've seen, and that's a concern to us, is the rise in fatalities, especially in serious injuries, especially in our vulnerable users. So again, we're seeing crash rates decline, but instances of fatality, serious injury, especially for those vulnerable users, increase at a disproportionate level. We're going to talk more about that in our speed management work as that's presented to you in the coming months. But something of real concern, speeding, distracted driving, reckless and careless driving is real, and we're seeing that in the data. Another topic, and really just an announcement for a presentation forthcoming your next round. It's almost air quality season. It's something we track. It's something that has meaning to MetroPlan Orlando's core business as a contingency plan. You'll hear more about that next month, but we are approaching those warmer days, those warmer summer days where people are traveling more. So something that we monitor more during those warmer months is air quality. So what's next? Again, why do we track trends? A lot of it's to help us influence how we prioritize and invest in program projects. So I mentioned, or next month rather, we'll be bringing a draft of our prioritized project list, an update from our 2021. So we'll have our 2022 update of our prioritized project list. And that will be influenced, the prioritization and network evaluation will be influenced by the updated data and analytics from tracking the trends, primarily safety and accessibility and reliability related data. You're also going to see more continued monitoring from us, more presentations, more dashboards, and to enable that visualization, to enable that more robust analysis. Us as staff and our consultant partners are doing a lot more on the GIS side to make sure that we can gather, assemble, and analyze these different data sources as easily or simply as possible, because they come in all different shapes and sizes, and they're all created differently, but we need to kind of make sense of them, again, to provide you with the best information available. So this is an information presentation. I implore you to dive into tracking the trends to learn more about what we've been tracking and monitoring over the past 20 years. We do have, in some cases, 20 years of trend data. And for some of those newer trends, you have to start somewhere. So you'll see 2 or 3 years in some cases of some of those newer indicators. But anyways, thank you for your time. I welcome any questions.
Thank you very much, Alex. I have a feeling we're going to have some. I wanted to relay, you're very accurate on that Visit Orlando. I think they're hoping for 80 million next year, so that's a lot of traffic out there. And also the crashes, my daughter became a victim of motorcyclists cutting through traffic on I-4, the 408, and causing multiple accidents, not just one, which is disheartening, But I want to recognize Commissioner Moore. You have a comment or question?
Yes, thank you. We've been working on adjusting speeds in my district on county roads. We do anticipate this data will then be correlated back to some of the different methods that you're using, whether it's reducing speeds or engineering type of improvements.
Yeah, so we actually have a separate study that we actually just kicked off, and our Vulnerable User Safety Working Group is kind of the guiding body for that, and it's a speed management study. Focus is on the state highway system, but we're obviously looking to see how that's applicable to kind of our local network. But it will be looking at kind of classifying roadways based on their context and then recommending speed change within context. And some of DOT's design guidelines and some of the target speed discussions are really going to enable that discussion to actually see us warranting lesser speeds. But it's not just about speed. There has to be design and other aspects, the engineering that we have to change the roadway to get the speed that we're yearning for. But that work is something that, if the board's interested, we can have presented when the time is right, because that is very valuable, and it feeds directly into the CAC's comment about what are we doing about safety. We are trying to move the needle as it relates both to the policy planning of safety, which is speed management, but also in the prioritization of our work, safety projects that have safety challenges, especially vulnerable user challenges, get that emphasis points in our prioritization process. So it's a focus for us at the policy level, but also quantitatively, technically in our analysis.
And is there any user information? For example, we have some food deserts, and I'm always concerned that maybe I have speeding and problems in certain roadways just because folks are trying to get to locations or services that are not in their immediate community. Is there any way to measure that or look at that? Because that would certainly be a different approach to maybe perhaps incentivizing some of these missing establishments.
I don't know if we're going into that level, but I'm taking note, and I know we have our project manager in the room, so let us circle back, and we'll certainly follow up with you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Commissioner DeLauria, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Alex, love the approach, love the deep dive on the data. I'll definitely be getting into it. But over the past years, we've talked about distracted driving distracted driving has safety implications, obviously, but also has implications on road capacity. I know that there was supposed to be a pilot program about looking at the transportation model addressing distracted driving, and I'm hoping that with all this data that we'll be able to do a correlation between both, because distracted driving does devalue or bring down the numbers or capacity of road capacities, and that's probably one of our biggest issues out there, because we're losing plus or minus 15% of our road capacity just because of distracted driving.
Yeah, I would agree. A lot of our congestions are at the intersection, and that delay from that person not starting as soon as they see green is absolutely there. Evolutions and our data availability is going to allow us to calculate that. We're dabbling with some new connected and autonomous vehicle data, which will allow us to start to crack that issue. That kind of raises the point is, as data becomes available, we're actually able to sharpen our planning tools and again, try to solve and not guess at some of the topics that we're. One day.
Thank you, Commissioner DeLauria. Mr. Campbell, you're recognized.
Thank you. Great presentation again. This may have been asked at the CAC meeting in one form or another, but with the 20 years of historical data that's been collected, is there any way of comparing the projections to what it actually was? Is there any comparison historical to the actual?
In control totals, yes. As it relates to kind of distribution across the region, there are ways. Have we conducted that analysis? Not directly for our plans. There was a parallel study by the Regional Planning Council, a follow-up from the How Shall We Grow. They did a how did we grow kind of exercise, and it looked at some of those indicators. A lot of the control totals, to the point of how fast, at what rate are we growing, are true. Where that growth is occurring has redistributed over the past 20 years based on local government land use decisions.
So as of now, how much emphasis there is looking forward instead of just comparing to the?
Oh, there's a lot of emphasis on forward, especially as it relates to our models, to our forecasts. Again, to the planning tools that we use. We use the forecast and these data as inputs, as parameters. Again, just to provide context. But it's a direct input. You mentioned the travel demand models about how we forecast growth into the future. The very basic input files for those travel demand models that forecast how many cars are going to go where and how use population growth and traffic analysis zone land use distribution across our 3-county area.
I was going to say, how accurate has you been with the projections versus the historical?
Accuracy is the modeling. That's a whole nother presentation. I don't want to put that on the consulting industry, but availability of data, I will say, will allow us to have more accurate and refined models, more predictive models versus guesstimates based on surveys of the past.
Good job.
All right. Thank you very much. That was a great presentation. We're going to move forward to the next agenda item, public comment of a general nature. Kathy, I'm sorry. Oh, Commissioner Ortiz. I'm sorry. I didn't see your light. Commissioner Ortiz. Alex, I think you're up one more second. Commissioner Ortiz, you're recognized.
Thank you. I know that this may pertain more to law enforcement, but we have a huge issue around the region with these motorcyclists doing wheelies and all kinds of acrobatic maneuvers, and which are causing all kinds of traffic. And I don't know to what extent we should probably form some sort of committee among all the cities with law enforcement to see how we can stop this, but it hasn't stopped. It continues to grow, and it's a real issue for all of us. It continues to cause accidents. So how can we address this from our perspective?
I would, as a staffer, I'd probably, put that back onto this group here. We have our vulnerable user safety working group, which is focusing more on pedestrian, bicycle safety, focusing on solving for speed and fatality. The instance and issue that you've just kind of characterized is very different. I'm not sure, off the cuff how we would solve that here. Obviously, a coalition of law enforcement, certainly. I've seen those events. I travel to South Florida often. They're a lot more common down there on the state highway system. So yeah, it is, I would say, a collaborative enforcement process, because a lot of them are impromptu, but some are scheduled, kind of social media scheduled, but haven't really seen too much of that, and I don't think we've dabbled in that. Yeah, and Nick just mentioned, there's already established groups made up of law enforcement and planning, and those are, each county has a community traffic safety group, which is, again, law enforcement, planning, engineering, as well as emergency management. So that may be the appropriate body or a starting place. Those are county specific. But if it is a regional issue, not just in Orlando, Orange, if it's a broader regional issue, that's something relevant for this policy board's discussion and direction.
What I hear from law enforcement is that their hands are tied and that they don't have much leeway in order to address this issue. So I think we need to definitely sit down and address this issue, sit down and figure out some, I don't know, policies or whatnot in order for us to, among all of us, to address this. So, because it keeps growing, and as we keep getting more visitors from all over the place, they're getting more bold and they're causing serious accidents out there. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ortiz. Mayor Demmings.
Yeah, I just want to jump in on that. I think that to Commissioner Ortiz's point, the street racing and motorcycle kind of adventures that's going on, it is risky. It's putting a lot of lives at risk. However, I think that for the debate or conversation amongst this group, it has to include the use of technology, because in order to do the enforcement, it's very risky for law enforcement to even do the enforcement to get into these pursuits, because these individuals are driving at high rates of speed. But through automation in some jurisdictions, they're able to cite the drivers, the riders, and from a technological consideration and a planning, when we plan our transportation engineering systems, that's the only way that I think law enforcement can be effective, is using automation to cite the individuals. Because if they can cite the individuals, then they have the opportunity to use the courts, for any citations, et cetera. So it's something that, as our pedestrian safety and bicycle safety technology has improved, is something that we should consider. But legislatively, of course, here in the state of Florida, there's been some pushback against automated traffic citation enforcement. And so, I believe that this conversation has to occur in Tallahassee as well, because of the preemptions at the state level that are occurring. So it's something that I think when Virginia's in Tallahassee and, when the debates come up on the various chamber floors, it's something to be, I think, taken into consideration. But that's the only, to me, realistic, viable option to.
One of the issues we have is that many of them wear masks and they don't have tags.
Yeah.
So that makes it even more difficult for our law enforcement officers to act upon. So
Yeah.
that's why I was wondering. And Mayor, you know that Tallahassee have 2 speeds, slow and stop. So so we need to.
Forgot reverse.
Reverse. That's the other one. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. But with that being said, I was wondering if we can do something among ourselves in order to address this issue.
You know, the different law enforcement agencies now have these camera systems where even you may be able to, when they're on the roadways, track from point A to point B to help with the enforcement. So it's not just about the individual identification, but, you know, the whole tracking of the movement of the cyclists and what have you. That's the only way they'll be able to stop it before it gets really well underway. So I know that within the law enforcement community, they do have some task forces that have been created here recently where they're trying to explore how they can jointly do enforcement.
All right, thank you, our two elected law enforcement professionals. Thank you so much, Alex. At this time, we're going to move on to our public comment. And Ms. Kathy, do we have anyone online who wishes to speak?
There are no hands at this
All
time.
right. Thank you, Kathy. Lisa, do we have any members of the public with us meeting with us this morning who want to make a comment?
Yes, I have received a comment card from Ms. Joanne Cornelis.
All right, Ms. Joanne, you are up.
Good job.
Hi, this is Joanne Canales, and my address is 324 Claremont Avenue, Lake Mary, Florida, 32746. Yes, like I said, I would like to get our bus on Estella Road at the corner of, Estella Road and Country Club Road. That's what bus stop we like to have over there, both this side and across the street from there, so that I don't have to walk so much like that or anything like that. And also, we need to have our bus over there at the Oviedo Boulevard, around, where the swimming pool is, in Bicahona. You know what it looks like. And you see it on the paper, it says Bicahona Pool right there. And the one over there, over at the Lake Mary Prep School at Tower Road. And I'd like to have this bus back to, in front of back to Central Baptist Church in Sanford, Florida, which is now Central Church, by the driveway where we enter and exit so that no one don't have to, like walk on clear over there from here to Central Baptist Church here, because that's a little too much walking. It's not safe, and the sidewalk and road is just too farther away from the bus stop. And it's too much grass between those two as well. We need to get it right there in front so that it'll be safer for me to get in and out of the church. And both sides, the one on the other side is okay, and this one's not okay. And same with bowling, we need to get the bus back in front, at least in front of the, and closer to Douglas Avenue going into the bowling alley instead of way out there to the pharmacy or anything like that, because it's still too far like that. Because we had it in there before the pandemic, now they've put it right back there, and I don't like it. Not cool. I like it better over here, in front of the this restaurant here. Whatever, with the dessert restaurant and stuff like that. That's why I like it better with the bus next to the Douglas, not further down by Westmont Drive. Okay? Same with the back, too. And we need to get it back over here. Even by the those underpass that we just built right there not too long ago. And yes, I went underpass, too. And I'd like to have the bus closer to the Douglas, not that far away down like that. And that's at 436 north, right past the I-4 over there. Okay? Just east of I-4, so that no one don't have to walk so far like that. Past, Westmont Park Drive. And stuff like that. And we need 24 hours bus service and train service every day, and every half hour every day too. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joanne. All right, we're going to move on to board member comments. Is there any board member who has a comment that they would like to say today? Seeing none, our next meeting is Wednesday, June 8th, 2022. We are officially adjourned. Thank you. You didn't want to. Hey, you're out on time.
Yes, thank you.
All right.